Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being with us this evening. I am calling to order this regularly hybrid city council meeting of Monday, May 8th, 2023 to order. For the members of the community, please be advised that this meeting is being broadcasted and recorded by Hartford Public Access Television and can be viewed via Hartford Public Access TV Facebook page, Comcast Xfinity Channel 96, www.HPA-TV.org or Channel 6032 for Frontier customers. Spanish interpretation is provided through a partnership with the City of Hartford and the Hartford Public Library. Additional accommodations can be made available with enough notice to the Office of Council President. Without further ado, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark.
Here.
Councilman Gale.
Here.
Councilwoman Hercules.
Here.
Councilman Hernandez.
Here.
Councilman LeBron.
Here.
Councilman Mitchum.
Here.
Councilwoman Rosado.
Present.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
Here.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And now if you can join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I also want to note for the record that we are also joined by our town clerk, Noel McGregor, our corporation counsel, Mr. Harold Rifkin, our assistant town clerk, Eric Lusa, and staff, Haley Green. Thank you. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we suspend the rules and discharge from Committee Item 5.5, Mayor BRONIN Budget Message, and recommend General Fund Budget and Implementing Ordinances, which is Item 5.5, and Item 5.3, an ordinance by Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Surgeon, Council President Rosado, Majority Leader Clark, Assistant Majority Leader Rossetti, to increase the fines and frequency that fines may be levied for illegal parking of tractor trailers and tractors as well.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any comments? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll? Councilman Clark.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, just for clarification for item 5.5, it's just the intent to postpone this item in preparation for our budget.
Duly noted. Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Councilman Gale.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hercules.
Yes.
Councilman Hernandez.
Yes.
Councilman LeBron.
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we approve the minutes of the April 24th, 2023 meeting.
Second.
Second.
A motion has been made and properly second. Are there any questions, comments on the minutes? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Councilman Gale.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hercules.
Yes.
Councilman Hernandez.
Yes.
Councilman LeBron.
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we place the following items on our consent calendar. Item 3.1, Mayor BRONIN with accompanying resolution authorizing the city to accept a grant of $121,527 from the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Division of Statewide Emergency Telecommunications. Item 4.1, Health and Human Services with accompanying resolution to accept a grant of $1,376,327 from the State Department of Public Health for HIV, HCV, STI prevention services. Item 4.2, Health and Human Services Committee with accompanying resolution authorizing the city to accept a grant of $90,000 through its Department of Health and Human Services, DHHS, for a homelessness prevention coordinator from the North Central Area Agency on Aging. Item 5.3, an ordinance to increase the fines and frequency that fines may be levied for illegal parking of tractors and tractor trailers. That had a public hearing on April 17th, 2023, and
5.1.
Item 6.2, a resolution by Majority Leader Clark, Assistant Majority Leader Rossetti, Councilman Hernandez, Councilwoman Surgeon, Councilwoman Hercules, requesting the city seek state funding to establish an MLK corridor.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Councilman Gale, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to comment on item 5.3 to make it clear to the public because the version of the ordinance that's on our website may not include the fact that this ordinance is designed, now states that it will take effect on July 1, and that is exactly how it was reported out of the committee. So the new tractor trailer fines will be effective as of July 1. It does include box trucks.
Ma'am, this conversation can't take place right now. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
You have the floor, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilman Gale, I also want to let the public know that because the committee meeting was held on the Wednesday and our deadline for council agenda, we did vote in the committee to we did vote successfully to send this back to council, approving the definition of the tractor and box truck and taking effect July 1st. However, due to our committee meeting again being after the deadline for the agenda, that's why we're doing discharging it here at the committee meeting, making sure it's voted upon at the council meeting, so it will take effect on July 1st.
Thank you for the clarification, Councilwoman Surgeon. Are there any other discussions? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Councilman Gale.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hercules.
Yes.
Councilman Hernandez.
Yes.
Councilman LeBron.
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we receive the following item. Item 3.4, Planning, Economic Development, and Housing Committee Communication, discharging ordinance amending Chapter 18, Article 2 of the Hartford Municipal Code.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any discussions, any comments? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Councilman Gale. Yes. Councilwoman Hercules.
Yes.
Councilman Hernandez.
Yes.
Councilman LeBron.
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we refer the following items to the mentioned committees. Item 3.2, Mayor BRONIN with accompanying resolution confirming the appointment of Ebony Jackson-Shaheed to the position of Director of Health and Human Services to be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Item 3.3, Mayor BRONIN with accompanying resolution authorizing submission to the Connecticut Department of Revenue Services, DRS, of the list of community programs eligible for the 2023 Connecticut Neighborhood Assistance Act NAA Tax Credit Program that has a public hearing on Monday, May 15th, 2023 at 6 p.m. to be referred to the Operations Management, Budget, and Government Accountability Committee. Item 6.1, the resolution by Council President Rosado, Councilman Gale, Councilman Hernandez, Councilwoman Assistant Majority Leader Rossetti, Councilman LeBron, A resolution authorizing to contract through the Friends of Keeney Park for $20,000 to execute and deliver a contract for city paddles to be referred to the Public Works, Parks, Recreation, and Environment Committee.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any comments, any discussions? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Councilman Gale.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hercules.
Yes.
Councilman Hernandez.
Yes.
Councilman LeBron.
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we postpone the following items. Item 5.2, Mayor BRONIN with accompanying ordinance amending the civil service ordinance that had a public hearing on March 20th, 2023. Item 5.4, a resolution with accompanying ordinance amending Chapter 26, Article 1, Section 26-1 of the Municipal Code of Hartford to create a Department of Parks and Recreation that had a public hearing on April 17th, 2023. And item 5.5, which is Mayor BRONIN budget message and recommended general fund budget and capital improvement program ordinance of appropriation for general fund, ordinance concerning appropriation in the capital improvement fund, ordinance tax levy on list of October 1st, 2022. That also had a public hearing on April 5th, 2023, and April 27th, 2023.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any comments? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Councilman Gale.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hercules.
Yes.
Councilman Hernandez.
Yes.
Councilman LeBron.
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we take action on item 5.1, Mayor BRONIN with accompanying ordinance amending Chapter 18, Article 2 of the Hartford Municipal Code, which is the rental licensing program.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any comments? Councilman Mitchum.
I guess first I would offer a friendly amendment here because I think most of the changes to the rental licensing program are good, but the change that pushes back the deadlines and for landlords to register is not good. So first, before I say anything else, I would move that we simply leave the current deadlines intact and adopt the other changes.
Would second that.
Councilman Mitchum, what is the current deadline?
I believe that, well, do you mean the current deadlines or the ones that are proposed in this?
Proposed and the current that you are proposing.
So the proposed deadlines move, I believe, would have to look at it, but I think they move everything back a little bit. In other words, for units of, buildings with 40 or more units, the deadline is July, or it has already passed. And then every smaller size of building, they have a little more time. And this proposal moves everything back a little bit.
Madam President, is this item up for discussion yet?
So we just want clarification on his motion. If you could give us a moment, so that then he can make the full motion. Even though we have one on the floor, clarification.
I have it in front of me if you want me to tell you precisely.
You have the floor, Councilman.
So, for buildings containing 40 or more dwelling units, the deadline had been July of 2021, and now it's pushed to July of this year. For buildings containing 10 to 39 units. It had been July of last year, and now it's pushed to October of next year. For buildings containing 4 to 9 units, it had been July of this year, and now it's pushed to October of 2025. And for buildings containing 3 dwelling units, it had been July of next year, and now it is October of 2026. So it gives landlords more time to comply without being fined. And I am proposing that we adopt the other changes, but not give them more time to comply.
So point of order, Corporation Counsel, since we do have a motion for an amendment on the floor, I'd like to take a vote on that, and then have the discussion on that motion? No?
Through you, Madam President, Councilman Mictum has made a motion. It's a proper motion to amend the proposed ordinance as he just described, and it's now debatable, and there would be in proper order, there would eventually be a vote on that, and then
Thank you for the
then vote on
clarification.
the ordinance.
Councilman Gale, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Respectfully, I understand Councilman Mictum's concern. We would all like our housing code enforcement to be stronger and to have been more efficient, but I think we have to recognize that this housing code was a major act when we enacted it. This was a complete overhaul of our housing code, and we created this whole landlord registration process. And what Councilman Mictum is referring to is delaying the time, the fact that the amendments seek to delay the timeframes that we originally built in. The original timeframes were great, but it appears that they were over-ambitious on the part of the city. And understanding from the presentation that we had, the administration just really wasn't able to satisfy our own orders. We're out of compliance with the orders, in part because we were unable to hire sufficient number of housing code inspectors, even though we had the budget. I think we were unable to hire. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I do think the amendment should be defeated, because all it will mean is that we will be out of compliance with our own ordinance. As was stated at the committee meeting, they are just now getting to the tiers where they probably should have been a year and a half ago, but this change will at least mean that we're consistent with our own ordinance. That's my understanding of it, so I would not be in favor of the amendment at this point. I would be more in favor of having department be consistent with our ordinance, as opposed to being out of step.
Councilman Mixtum?
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate Councilman Gale's point, and I'm aware of why this is proposed to delay it, because we effectively can't enforce this ordinance. We don't have the personnel, we don't have the structures in place. And what I would say is, I think we all remember, maybe that was in February or March, when tenants and their advocates filled this chamber because housing conditions were so dire in the city, and they continue to be. And it's so hard to get landlords to repair housing, even as rents rise all over the city. And one of the big answers from the mayor and from this body was, well, this rental licensing program isn't going to solve this problem. This is going to bring landlords into compliance. And that was the promise. And if we can't do it, the answer is not to give ourselves and landlords more time. Because then what we're saying is, relax. You've been lousy up to now, and we're going to let you be lousy some more because we can't get our act together. The answer is to pour more money and more resources and to hold ourselves accountable. I don't want us to stay here and say to the people, yes, we're taking care of it. We have this rental licensing program, because the fact is we're not. That is a lie. We are doing, I'm not going to say nothing, but we're not doing enough. And I remember last budget year when Councilwoman Hercules and I proposed to increase the number of housing inspectors significantly and to put more money toward it. And Charles Matthews came here and said, no, we got it under control. With 8 housing inspectors, we got this thing on lock. And that was not true, because now the budget says 16, which we still don't have. So let us admit what it is we're doing here, which is we are failing the tenants of this city, who are 75% of the population. And if we want to fix that, we don't fix it by giving ourselves and their landlords who are exploiting them more time. We fix it by spending more money and devoting more efforts to doing it right.
Councilman LeBron, followed by Majority Leader Clark.
So there's a question to you, Councilman Mictum. Was the original rental licensing, the RLP, let's just call it RLP so we don't have to go through it, was this as a result of the Emmanuel Cool movement? Right, okay, so the against slumlords, I forgot the coalition, in regards to mold and like all the horrible things that were happening 5 years ago. This RLP was a result of that. It came up before I was on council.
If I could reply through you, Council President.
Yes, Madam President, thank you.
I'm struggling to remember if it was 5
Councilman
years.
Mixtum, you have the floor.
I think that's right. I think 5 years is right. But I know that was what brought this to the fore.
Right, with our good friend, community member, Pastor A.J. Johnson, that whole coalition, right? I think it was the Greater Hartford Interaction Faith Alliance or something like that. Right?
Correct.
All right, so through you, Madam President, what I will say is this, is that we all know that speeding happens, right? We all know that speeding happens, but we don't change the speed limit higher because speeding happens. I think with ordinances, there's many that we can't enforce, right? So rather we move it or not, it's almost a moot point because we can't enforce it. However, there's a lot of things, maybe not a lot, but I can think of a handful right now where the movement of the ordinance wouldn't really matter. So I just, that's the way my sentiments feel right now. Sorry for the lack of clarity. I just wish that we were able to enforce it, Councilman Mictum, because I believe even if we kept it, right? Like, I feel your passion, and I think all of us here want to support tenants, but moving it, I'm not sure, moves the needle in the direction that we all want.
Councilman Mixtum.
Through you, Council President, do I understand you, Councilman LeBron, to be saying that you support my amendment and that we should keep the timelines as they were?
I didn't say it yet. What I'm saying is that through you, Madam President, what I'm saying is, Councilman Mictum, clearly we can't meet the guidelines, right? So even if we kept them the same, what effect would it have in your opinion?
You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I think the effect is twofold. One is that instead of saying now we're going to push these things out 1 or 2 years, which really, I mean, that gives a lot of time to some landlords, we can say that at any minute we might start enforcing this, landlords. At any minute, so be ready. That's one thing. I mean, yes, we can't do it like we would like to. But again, like you said, we don't change the speed limit because people speed, right? We still have a rule that you're not supposed to speed. And we might get you and we might not, right? So that's one reason. And I think the other reason goes to what I said to Councilman Gale's comment, which is that if we're going to talk about what the city is doing for tenants, let's be honest about how little the city is doing. Let's be in violation. I would rather, frankly, that we were, not complying with our own ordinance, because let's call a spade a spade. We're not doing the thing we said we were going to do, and it's because we didn't put the resources behind it.
Thank you.
Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam
Rossetti.
President. Councilman Mitchum. Thank you. Let's do this.
Majority Leader Clark.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, Councilman, can you explain your dates again? Can you explain your dates again?
You have the floor.
So I'm just referring to the changes. The deadline for buildings with 40 or more dwelling units was July 1st, 2021. This would move it to October 31st, 2023. The deadline for...
Councilman Mixon, I apologize. Can you say that a little bit louder, please?
You bet, I'm sorry. The deadline for units or buildings with 40 or more units was July 1st, 2021. This amendment, which I'm opposing, I guess we could say. In other words, the change that is here it's a little confusing, but the change moves that to October 31st, 2023. The deadline for buildings with 10 to 39 units was July 1st, 2022, and then it would have been changed to October 31st, 2024. The deadline for buildings with 4 to 9 units was July 1st, 2023, and it would be changed to October 31st, 2025. And the deadline for buildings with 3 units was July 1st, 2024, and would be changed to October 31st, 2026.
I'm sorry. Through you.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And just through you, can you just explain again as to the rationale for your friendly amendment?
The rationale is, although the city is not in compliance, in other words, the 40 plus unit buildings, we are not enforcing, we are not doing the inspections we would have to do to get the rental licensing program operational with them. Like, we're behind schedule. Although that is the case, and although that will not change immediately, and I don't know that we know how many buildings are signed up, not many, if any, from what I understand. I think it is better and more honest to the people, and especially the tenants affected, simply to say, yes, we are failing, hold us accountable in any number of ways, than to move the goalposts and also send a message to landlords that they can rely on our slow movement, and that they have more time.
Thank you.
Councilman LeBron?
Yeah, just Councilman Mickham. How would this, the big slumlords and all that stuff, I'm down with you, right? Like, I just want to just say that. Down, for those that know what down means, is an agreement, for lack of a better term. I'm sorry, I work with youth, so it's hard to remember the terms. But how would this, it seems to me that this would be very punitive to the small landlords, right? The smaller folks have the more difficulty to adapt. And so my fear would be is that they could essentially be targeted as well, as opposed to the spirit, I think, of the larger landlords. Could you go into that further?
Sure. I mean, I agree with you that the larger landlords are by far the worst offenders in terms of poor conditions and failing to make repairs. But if we're talking about the smallest landlords, 3 units, they wouldn't still have to do anything to comply until July of next year, right? So they still have time. The folks who have 4 to 9 units, and as we go up to 4 to 9 units, I'm starting to lose sympathy. Because if you can own a 9-unit building, like, you're much better positioned than any tenant practically in this city to comply, to make repairs, to come out of pocket. So already 9 units, I don't feel too bad, but the 9-unit folks have till July of this year if my amendment carries the day, which is to say if we don't approve the proposed amendment. So I think the truly what we might call mom and pop landlords, 3 units, they still have time. And the other folks I don't feel bad for.
So, Councilman Mickham, through you, Madam President, and I'll just end with this statement. Oftentimes what happens, Councilman Mickham, when we enact policies and something like this with landlords, the ones that injustice really can be enforced upon are the ones with the less resources, right? And so I'm thinking about small landlords as folks who, are trying to get by, and this is another type of income or real estate, right? And my fear is that they are the low-hanging fruit in the enforcement piece, part of this, and that the spirit of your amendment is trying to get at the peach that's hard to reach. But we're kind of putting them all together. What I will say is, I'd say we need to dive in this a little bit more and to postpone it, because I don't want those smaller landlords. The spirit of what you're saying, I think we're all in agreement, but since I've been here on council, the small landlords have really been targeted. They were hit hard during COVID. You know, they were treated the same as larger landlords. And so you got folks just trying to make a living, scraping by on fixed incomes and smaller landlords. And my fear is that, again, the larger landlords have resources. They could pay for attorneys, and it's much easier in terms of enforcement of going, attacking folks that have the least ability to defend themselves.
Councilman Mixtum.
Let me give it to Councilman Gale, because I've been talking a ton and he had his hand raised at the same time.
Councilman Gale.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just quick to Councilman LeBron's last point, there's a lot of other things in this amendment that we should not postpone it. We should pass it tonight, and we should pass it without this amendment. And I just want to reflect on a couple of comments that I've heard stated, because they're not factual. It's been stated that the city is doing too little for its tenants. It's been stated that we didn't put in sufficient resources and that we're failing our tenants. I want to just reiterate what I said a few minutes ago. The city of Hartford passed landlord registration, a major change in the housing code. I don't know if there's another city in the state of Connecticut right now that has landlord registration. This was passed 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It's a major overhaul. It was designed to clearly help our tenants. It clearly demonstrates an activist city council that moved forward to try to do better for our tenants. And to the comment that we didn't put forward enough resources, that's, and I know Councilman Mictum was not at the committee meetings, so he didn't hear. What indeed happened was it was not for a lack of resources, it was for a lack of bodies. We had the resources, but we weren't able to hire people to do the housing code inspections that were necessary. So it wasn't a lack of resources. And since I can anticipate the next comment that's coming, let me also just mention that the housing code revision that created this landlord registration process was designed to increase the number of housing code inspectors each year as the program went into place, because it was recognized that each year as you added more apartments, remembering that this program is designed to first go after the big landlords in year 1, 40 units or more, and then in year 2, 10 to 40 units, and then in year 3, 3 to 10 units, and then in year 4, you get to the 3 families. And so it was recognized from the beginning that we were going to need more housing code inspectors. We were funding that by the registration fees that landlords are paying. So this is, in many respects, the big landlords are helping to fund the housing code inspectors that we're going to need 3 years from now. And that's why we're now up to 14 or 16 housing code inspectors to get the job done. So I don't think any of us should feel that we're not doing a sufficient job. We're doing a pretty darn good job in attempting to help our tenants live in decent places. And I think we've gone yeoman's distance in this.
Councilman Mixtum.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll respond to Councilman Gale, and I won't say what he said I was going to say, because that wouldn't be any fun at all. I'll say something different. I think it's not as simple as saying, well, we can't hire folks with the money we've allotted. That is part of it, but or that because we haven't brought in the fees from landlords, the big landlords, then we haven't been able to turn that around to hire more housing inspectors. That's part of it, But there, I mean, this, I don't want to go far afield, but we have, in the service of apparent fiscal soundness for the city, we have dramatically reduced our benefits. We've heard our directors talk about how hard it is to hire people all across the board, in part because of things like that. We did that. That's a choice we made, and there are places in the budget where we don't make that kind of choice, and we continue to spend vigorously without ever slowing down, right? These are choices we have made over the years, and here we are. We finally come to the point, well, a couple years ago, where the big landlords were supposed to be doing it, and we didn't put the money to be collecting the fees. And I think it is appropriate. I would also dispute that tenants in this city are well cared for by their city. I just don't think that's true. I think rents are going up. I think we have one of the highest eviction rates in the nation. At least last time I checked, maybe that's gone down a little, God willing. So we are not looking out for our tenants, who are the vast majority of our residents. We're doing a poor job in that regard. We are not building new public housing. We're building a lot of market rate housing that's not helping them. And I think we can step up and we can do better. I want to respond to Councilman LeBron's comment, and I want to ask through you, Council President, if it would assuage his concerns if I withdrew my amendment and instead framed the amendment so that it kept the deadlines for the 4 to 9 units, the 9 to 30, or 10 to 39 units, and the biggest ones, and it pushed back the deadline for the 3-unit buildings. Because if that will address the concern of the smallest landlords, the true mom and pop landlords, the 3 units, I would garner his support. I would certainly modify it that way. Through you, Madam President.
Go ahead, I'll speak after.
Councilman Mickham, just in general, the ability, you and I both work full-time, and I think it's important for us to discuss. So we're having this lively discussion on the dais. I just wish, sometimes you give a phone call, so that way we could talk about this, so we don't have to do this here. But that's all right. That's our style. We want to be transparent. I know you pride yourself on transparency. And I think we all do, right? What I will say is this, is that my hopes are that, in my opinion, the deadlines, I'm not sure if they're going to make a difference, but I want to hold you to something. Because I put something up last month, and you said, Nick, it doesn't make a difference why you're putting this up, because it's not going to do this and that. And here we are again on the other side. But yeah, I'm still willing to listen. Well, on the other end, you weren't last month. I just want to make that clear. But what I will say in the spirit of everything is that in the spirit of the ordinances, Councilman Mickham, is that when we talk about rights for our tenants and the marginalized people in our community, we should take a no excuses approach. And so our families need help right now. So in the spirit of everything, we should be held accountable to any and all standards. So I would agree with that.
Thank you, Councilman. So, Councilman Gale and Councilman Mixon, I'm going to ask questions to you both on this. So, one of the reasons why we have this problem now is because these landlords, especially the slumlords, recognize that there is no enforcement from the city of Hartford. And I don't want to give them not one more day if I don't have to, right? And with my colleague, Councilman LeBron, who talks about, the mom and pops, the 3-family, if you're renting, you're getting an income, fix the unit. They're as responsible as a big landlord. Now, my question is, it's not 2020, it's not 2021, we can't go back, right? To what Councilman LeBron said with the 45 units, is there a breakdown of effective dates for them to be in compliance in this ordinance, meaning the buildings who occupied 45 or more, What is the deadline? Is it this year, Councilman Gale?
Yes, Madam President, the biggest land, I believe it's October of this year for complete registration for the largest apartment dwellings. And if I'm not mistaken, just by the way, and it's unfortunate we don't have our committee report in front of us, because at committee, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that there are 90+% of the largest landlords are already have made application, and the city is in the process of approving. They had statistics for us as to how many of these, and they were pretty much on to the next tier, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, we could, I suppose we
So
could get
my-
all of those statistics, but I do believe that the administration was pretty well into this. That nobody should think that for any reason we haven't, the large landlords haven't already made application for their landlord licenses, and the inspections are taking place. And as I believe, the second tier is already major amounts of inspections. But that said, in answer to your question, this would change it to October of this year for the large landlords.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any other concerns, questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilwoman Surgeon, you have the floor.
Thank you. I have sat back and listened to the debate on both sides, and I totally understand Councilman Mitchum's need and want to make sure our tenants, because we are all on the same page. We want to make sure that anyone who lives in the city, whether you're a tenant or a property owner, everyone is treated fairly in the city. When the administration came to the committee meeting last Wednesday, the reason for the change, and I think Councilman Gale expressed their terms or their need for a couple more years. If you go back and when this original ordinance was adopted by the city 5 years ago, the city was again not ready. I think over the last couple of years since we have been elected, the administration have hired a wonderful young lady who's actually really ready to implement this program. The program is ready to be implemented. Councilman Gale, I do believe, I think it was 80% of the 40 plus apartments, they were almost ready to go. But again, I do believe that, the ordinance has been in the books. We need to notify people of implementation. This is May of 2023, and the implementation of the 40 plus apartments is going to be pursuant to Councilman Mitchum's amendment on the floor, would have to be started in October. I don't believe the administration is ready to start this process in October. In conjunction with that, the administration is working with the fire department or the fire marshal's office to make sure everything, all the issues or concerns or whatever ordinances are on the books, everything needs to be complied with. I would like to give the city an opportunity to actually make this program work. This has never been done in the city before. I do understand there have been issues regarding employment and hiring people. And I do totally agree that we should start with the bigger apartment complexes and go on down every couple of years until we get to our 3-family. Regardless if it's 40 units or 3 units, I think everyone should comply with the ordinance we have in the book. If we can't implement this program 5 years ago, and we're given an opportunity to actually implement the program properly now and actually bring it in to fruition, why aren't we giving the administration an opportunity? They've now hired the number of people needed. They're working with the fire marshal department, and everybody is ready to go. We need to notify these 40 plus apartment owners that this is going to be implemented come July of 2023. Be ready. I do understand about not, basically, all this information was discussed in a committee meeting last Wednesday. And we did ask the administration, why are we pushing this program forward? They want to make sure that this is implemented and implemented properly. They want to make sure that when this program begins, there is no ifs and buts, why it's not going to be done, why your apartment complex, you're not ready. And working in conjunction with the Fire Marshal's Department, I believe that this program is ready to go. And I believe giving them until July 2020, I think it's October 2023, will give them opportunity to make sure everything is in order, their computer system, staffing is ready. I would like the opportunity to give the administration the opportunity to make this work. If it's not working a year from now, then you know what? We can go back and take a look at it. But why not give the administration an opportunity to make this work? 5 years ago when this was implemented, it was not done. Where were we 5 years ago? We weren't elected 5 years ago. Now we are elected and we put all this information together, hire people to make sure we can implement this. And now we're saying, oh, we're not going to give anybody a chance to make this work. I beg to differ with Councilman Mitchum. I really would like to see this program work, and I'm asking my colleagues to work with the administration to make sure that when this is done, it's done correctly. That's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your input. And so, as I've heard all my council colleagues speak, and this was in committee, and it came out favorably. And you're absolutely right, Councilwoman. The administration, this council body, has worked very hard in producing this document. But in my opinion, and I hope that my council colleagues can agree with me, I want to make sure that the residents of the city of Hartford know exactly what's going on with this ordinance, to be transparent, to allow them to process this. So I would recommend that Councilman Mitchum withdraw his motion so that we can postpone this and get as clear as we can with the community moving forward. I think that 2 weeks is not going to hurt this process. Councilman Mitchum.
Thank you, Madam President. And I just want to, before I do that, I want to say I appreciate Councilwoman Surgeon's point, and I think my point here was not to impede the implementation of this, but simply to say that we are still going to march forward and implement it as quickly as we can as a city, but also we're going to be honest about how we're failing to implement it. And yeah, I'm not interested really in giving landlords a chance. I'm interested in giving tenants a chance because they're the ones who suffer when we wait. But I appreciate Council President's suggestion. I will withdraw my motion to amend, and instead I will move that we postpone this.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any other discussions?
Yes,
Oh,
Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
All right, I'm a little bit totally confused. So this item basically was approved at the last council meeting. And the reason why it's back here for discussion again was because it wasn't discharged from committee. And so I am a little bit confused when we're talking about postpone this item when it was approved, if I'm not mistaken, at the last council meeting. It was just not properly discharged from the committee. So I would like to get an opinion from our esteemed Corporation Counsel.
Through you, Council President, the fact is that even though the item was taken up at the last council meeting on April 24th, it was not properly before the council because, as you said, Councilwoman Surgeon, it had not been discharged by the committee. Therefore, this vote tonight, or proposed vote tonight, is really a do-over necessitated by the fact that the vote that was taken at the last council was improper.
Thank you, Corporation Counsel Rifkin. Okay, so basically you said this is a do-over. And so all these issues and concerns that is on the table currently was not brought up at council meeting ago, we had another do-over again at the committee level last Wednesday. And now we're asking for a 2 weeks postponement for what? Are we going to go back to committee? Is this item going to be in committee? So through your Corporation Counsel, I believe at the beginning of the council meeting, the item, I believe, was discharged. So where is the item? Is it in committee? Where is the item currently?
Through you, Council President, the item was discharged, and that discharge was filed with the clerk's office prior to noon on May 3rd.
Yes, sir.
That means that the item, 5.1, is back before the council for action, which we are now debating.
And so through you, Madam Chair, with counsel to the Corporation Rifkin, so therefore, if there's a 2 weeks postponement, is the item going to be in Neverland on the council? Is the item going to go back to PD&H committee? Where is the postponement? I guess I'm asking, how do you address the item and where is it going to go? Or is it going to just sit on the council's agenda and not be in no committee for the questions to be answered?
Through you, Council President, a motion to postpone would merely keep it on the agenda, and it would be called at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Corporation Counsel.
So for the record, thank you, Councilwoman Surgeon. For the record, Councilman Mixner, you have withdrawn your motion. Assistant Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Point of order.
I'm sorry, Majority Leader, you have the floor. It's been a long night.
Well, I withdrew that motion, but I made the motion to postpone, which was seconded. I think
I
that's where we
seconded.
are.
Yes, yes, it's been withdrawn. Yes, yes, Majority Leader, it's your motion.
Thank you, Council President. The current motion is on the floor that I placed this item on action, so I would like to withdraw my motion to take action on item 5.1. In that same manner, I would like to make a motion that we postpone item 5.1.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Any comments or questions? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Councilman Gale.
No.
Councilwoman Hercules.
Yes.
Councilman Hernandez.
Yes.
Councilman LeBron.
When you go to the press, can you say that you won this one? Congratulations, Councilman Micton.
I don't get a lot of wins around here.
Yes.
Councilman Mitchell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
No.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That concludes our business agenda for this evening. And I want to start by saying to my colleagues, thank you. This has been a wonderful meeting. I am not going to adjourn this meeting. I am going to recess this meeting until May 16th at noon to reconvene for budget deliberations. So in other words, we're taking a pause and we're reconvening on May 16th, where we will see you all. I have a couple announcements. On May 15th at 6 p.m., we have the NAA public hearing, which is the Neighborhood Assistance Act, here at Council Chambers. On May 16th, again, we will reconvene. With that said, everyone, have a nice evening and good night. Good night.